Traders, how are you? Marcello here, founder of the Day Trading Academy, co-founder of Speed Up Trader. Today we're going to be doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. Outside of two huge pieces of news that occurred this week, one is the U.S. has essentially turned into a war zone due to the fact that the young man, the African-American in Minneapolis, that was killed by the police officer. That set off protests not only in Minneapolis but in other places as well. It's quite serious. You know, they're lighting whole neighborhoods on fire, police stations on fire. I'm sure all of you guys are seeing it on the news. So first, my heart goes out to the families, to the young man that unfortunately was killed, and hopefully all of you guys are safe as well. Second, we did have a piece of good news. The first time since 2011 that Elon Musk, with his company SpaceX, allowed the United States to send rockets from, the last time was 2011, from U.S. soil, and it's the first time that a private company has sent humans to space. And this hopefully will be part of the long journey that not only NASA but also Elon Musk wants to go, to the moon. NASA wants to be able to set up a base on the moon. Elon Musk wants to go to Mars. So that was actually great news. One of a good friend of mine went down there and actually saw it, and that was actually pretty impressive, he said. So those are two main pieces of news that happened this week overall, and I'm sure the protests aren't going to stop this week, so hopefully you guys are safe. In regards to the markets, Tuesday we had the markets go a little bit higher. We had a lot of news that economies were starting to open, not only countries overseas, but also states and cities in the U.S. The New York Stock Exchange trading floor opened again, even though it's just kind of a symbolism thing because everything is done electronically now. The Dow is surging 600 points or 2.5% on Tuesday, got back above 25,000 for the first time since March 3rd. Wednesday, we had higher markets as well as a lot of the governments ordered business closures, the easing of business closures in many states that lifted investor sentiment. Then Thursday, we had the retreating of the highs in the U.S. stock market due to the fact that Trump signed an executive order relating to social media companies, which I'll tell you that in just a moment. Also held a news conference in China. China is doing something that definitely is not a good thing. And Friday, the markets were mixed as investors started to digest the information with the reassurance of the trade pact with China will remain in place, even though a lot of people are concerned about ongoing job cuts in the U.S. despite the reopenings. Overall, for the week, the U.S. market, the Dow was up 3.75%. For the year, it's still down over 11. S&P 500 was up 3% for the week. For the year, it's down 5.77%. And the NASDAQ was up 1.77% for the week. And it's up 5.76% for the year. In Tuesday's overseas market news, Tuesday, Spain decided to start letting foreign visitors in again. If you guys didn't know, Spain actually is the second most visited country in the world that overtook the U.S. So it's now France, Spain, and then the U.S. It's a big part of their economy, so definitely a good thing that they started to open that as well. They were the best market so far this week in Europe at a positive 5.95%. And Latin American markets were mostly positive outside of the Merval in Argentina, which lost 8.29%. The Bovespa in Brazil went up by 6.36%. In Africa and the Middle East, mostly higher. South Africa went up 0.66%. Asia and Australian markets are mostly higher this week as well. The Nikkei 225 in Japan is the biggest winner at 7.30%. And for my traders in the Philippines, that market went up 5.40%. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency news, we still haven't seen that huge surge that a lot of analysts were talking about in regards to the halving. If you remember, the halving occurred 2 weeks ago, which is supposedly supposed to reduce the future supply of the coins. For this week, it only went up 3.55%. It got to 9,540 with 7 cents as of Saturday morning. Financial and banking news. In Wednesday, European Union's executives released Finally, an $824 billion stimulus plan that hopes to end ends of disputes that have started to scuffle the great European Union between the North and the South. Remember that the EU is a 27-nation bloc, and for them to be ordered to pass something, everybody has to agree. So just imagine your family, 27 of you, sitting around, and all of you guys have to agree to do one thing that's going to be the best thing for all of you. The U.S. Treasury may impose transactions and freeze assets than Chinese officials and businesses. This is to implement a new national security law in regards to Hong Kong. If you guys don't know, the Hong Kong is a Chinese island, which now is controlled by China, but it was part of the Great British Empire. The England, the mighty British Empire, returned Hong Kong to China in 1997 with an agreement that they were going to have two systems. They were going to allow them the freedoms in Hong Kong, and they were going to take those away for a very long time. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was 50 years. Well, that didn't pan out, and China started to, let's say, restrict their liberties and continue to pass laws that are more in line with what they want instead of abiding by what they agreed to with England. So the U.S. is now implementing that to be able to get back in China. The protests did ensue. Hong Kong police shot pepper bullets at the protesters and also arrested 300 people. Federal Reserve this week is expected to start their Main Street lending program, which is providing 4-year loans to businesses between 500 and 15,000 employees at up to $600 billion. The program is the central bank's most expensive ever. And this is the biggest of the credit creating powers for non-financial firms as well. We're just continuing to spend money, acting like we have a limited amount of money. I don't understand how we're going to pay this back, but I guess the government doesn't want it to pay it back. I was going to do a video on that, why, even though we're having an economic crisis right now, that's mainly was started due to the coronavirus. It's not to me is the reason. That's kind of what popped the bubble, so to speak. We're going to have a much bigger problem in the future. If you guys want me to do a video on that, leave it there in the comments. I'll be happy to do that for you. U.S. Treasury yields are still near the lowest levels on record due to the economic uncertainty and also the massive borrowing of the federal government. In commodities, U.S. crude went up 6.54% for the week, although it's still down 42.30% for the year. It's at $35.49. International Brent went up 7.62% at $37.84. Even though it's still down just over 43% for the year. On Wednesday, we had a huge 4% drop from a 3-month high because there's questions in regards to Russia if they're going to agree to extend their cuts that they agreed to with the OPEC Plus. OPEC, remember, controls not the majority, but a very big chunk of the oil market, and OPEC Plus includes Russia, and Russia is one of the top three producers in addition with the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. They meet in 2 weeks, so there's a little speculation in regards to if they're going to agree to new cuts or not. International Energy Agency is saying that World Energy Investment report, they're saying that the coronavirus was staggering in both scale and swiftness, and it also affected the investment in the oil markets by about 20% or $400 billion versus last year. The worst hit is U.S. shale. The investment dropped by 50% in 2020, even though we've seen quite a bit of a rally in oil prices. Gold mining stocks are one of the best performing stocks in 2020. If you guys don't remember, I talked about it a few years ago. They're set to move even higher with new rounds of stimulus and looser monetary policy. Essentially, when the value of a currency, for thousands of years, everybody has bought gold and silver, precious metals for money. We used to use that for money. So the more they print, the more money we take out, the more stimulus that we do to save the economy and to help the economy, the more it's going to devalue our currency, the dollar. The only reason why we've been able to get away with it so long is because we're the reserve currency, meaning that everybody uses dollars. So essentially we can keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, but I think the day of reckoning is going to be coming up very soon. Precious metals is mixed for the week. Gold is down 0.23% to $1,729. Silver is up 3.81% at $17.95, even though it did hover above 18 for quite a while. In political news, I mentioned The situation in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is actually the 5th largest financial hub in the world. It's going to benefit other centers, for example, like Tokyo and most likely Singapore, which are in the top 10 as well. President Bolsonaro in Brazil is attacking the Supreme Court due to an investigation that is alleged to be disinformation and intimidating campaign by supporters, he says. And it's also a political crisis for him, even though they're having quite a problem with the increasing pandemic of the coronavirus. Merkel declined to attend an event for the G7 that Trump said he was going to host later this year. She blamed it on the coronavirus, that she couldn't make it. In economic news, Singapore's recession is going to be worse than expected this year, obviously due to the coronavirus. The GDP growth is now set to dip between 4 to 7%, much more than they anticipated. And they're now starting to have a second wave of infections, leading to more restrictions as well. Mexico Central Bank predicts that the economy is going to contract by up to 8.8% in 2020. It's one of the biggest contractions in decades for Mexico. U.S. application home mortgages surged last week to a 6th consecutive weekly increase. Went up 8.6% from the week before, I should say, right? Because this is last week news. And it went up 54% in a surge in April, which may indicate that the housing market might be what actually leads us out of this recovery and the recession. Total U.S. job claims surged to 41 million. Job cuts from state and local governments with bloated budgets that are fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, and a second wave of the coronavirus has a lot of people concerned in regards to the what's going to come next. That's going to likely contribute as well to the 10th consecutive week of 2.1 million Americans seeking unemployment benefits. U.S. economy shrank by an annualized rate of 5% in the first quarter. That's these official numbers that has actually been changed from the numbers that they were stating before. It's the worst performance for the U.S. economy since quarter 4 of 2008 during the financial crisis. U.S. consumer spending is in another month record decline in April, plunging 13.6% versus 6.9% in March. Was the biggest drop since the government started keeping track of it in 1959. This is quite a problem because remember that consumer spending is actually 70% of the economy. So if people don't go out and spend money, then we're probably not going to have the kind of recovery that we're looking for. The corporate news, Amazon is in advanced talks by a company called Zoox, Z-O-O-X, which is a company that develops autonomous vehicle tech. What they want to do is be able to have a car that you can order from your app. A taxi just comes automatically, no driver, completely autonomous, and they bought that to be able to go ahead and expand their autonomous. Amazon's taking over the world, isn't it? They bought that to expand their autonomous vehicle tech. American Airlines, the world's largest airline, seeks to reduce its 17,000 management and support staff by 30%. It's going to accept volunteers to take buyouts through 10th of June, but it's going to be forced to make cuts if people don't take those buyouts. The CEO did dismiss rumors of a bankruptcy as well. United Airlines, which at one point stated that they only need 12% of their current workforce, is actually saying that they're going to cut their management ranks by 30% once the U.S. payroll aid that they receive expires in fall. And Nissan, which is one of the largest car companies in the world, lost money through their operating year, which ends in March. The comparison was from last year. The year before was $2.9 billion in profit. Now it's $376 million loss, and they're going to slash capacity by 20% and close a plant in Spain as well. Trump's top economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, which used to be part of CNBC, says that Hong Kong may now need to be treated like a part of mainland China after the new laws that were passed in China. The new law warns the U.S. U.S. is warning, China that it might undermine the present autonomy of Hong Kong. In technology, an Australia-based Mako Energy and other firms are making underwater turbines that are about 2 to 4 meters. I don't know how to show you that in meters, but you translate it, convert it if you guys want. They can actually be placed under the water and even not very strong currents as well that can generate power to up to 20 homes. They can be used in rivers, irrigation canals, and also oceans. The U.S. finally reclaimed its sovereignty. I told you guys about the SpaceX launch in the rocket, which was actually great to see. In investment news, LATAM, which is the Latin America's second largest airline, is following Avianca, which is the largest airline, I would say the second largest in Latin America after LATAM, the biggest in Colombia. They're going to file for bankruptcy in the United States as well. And Lufthansa, which owns several airlines, including others in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and Belgium, has agreed to a bailout from the German government worth about $9.8 billion. They're going to give 20% of the company to the German government and also give them 2 seats on the board as well. This is what I don't like about capitalism. I think that the government should be as small as possible, because I think that the kind of war that we have with socialism and capitalism, there's a situation where, in my opinion, neither extreme is good. Full capitalism, where people only care about money and you don't take care of anybody, and you ruin the environment and you don't take care of the workers, that's not good. But socialism, where the government takes care of everything and you don't have free markets, that's also bad too. But we have a situation now where we have some of these companies like Hertz, JCPenney, Whiting Petroleum, even Chesapeake Energy. They're all going into bankruptcy, and then they're paying their executive millions of dollars before the bankruptcy. Hertz paid over $16 million, $16 million to their executives before they entered into bankruptcy. That, to me, should be illegal. They should go after these people. U.S. bankruptcy law actually bars retention payments to executives, so paying bonuses before the filing means that they don't have to get court approval to do so. Trump is introducing legislation that may scrap or weaken the laws that protect a lot of the internet firms from the liability of what people post on their platforms. If you guys remember, there's been a bit of a war between Twitter and Trump after Twitter put a fact check little line under one of his tweets, and he decided to go ahead and put an executive order through it. Now he's looking for legislation to strip a lot of these social media companies from those privileged rights. Carl Icahn, largest shareholder in Hertz, that's now in bankruptcy. He had at one point quite a big percentage of the company. He invested $2.3 billion, that's with a B, billion dollars in the last 6 years, and he had to sell it recently at just $39.8 million. In international events, the U.S. Embassy in Bogota stating that the U.S. Army is coming down to help Colombia in regards to its cultivation of coke. The cacao leaves, which actually goes into cocaine. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to do some recon there on the Venezuelan border as well. They actually saw a rise in production of the coca leaves, of the cultivation, I should say. They saw a rise in the cultivation of the coca leaves from last year to this year. Or excuse me, from 2018 to 2019. The U.S. has also officially ended its relationship with the WHO, the World Health Organization, because of the handling of the coronavirus pandemic. And Trump says that on Friday, he said that he's accusing the UN agency of becoming a puppet of China. And I talked to you guys about the war zone that we're in right now in the United States. And an unusual fact this week, Spain is going to begin expediting its first nationwide income project, so universal income essentially, when they're going to give the 850,000 households, 2.5 million poorest citizens, a wage, a guaranteed wage of $1,218 per month, 50% of that. So about $600 or so, half of the minimum wage. And if you guys don't know, Norway, which has $1 trillion fund for the country, actually tried this and they stopped it because it didn't work. So funny that Spain is going to see it. This is how a lot of these bureaucracy and governments work. Somebody else tries it, it doesn't work, and they still insist on trying it because they think it's a good idea. An English court on Thursday said that Venezuela is going to have to decide what political group it's going to listen to and make the legitimate government in their eyes to be able to go ahead and issue them the $1.03 billion in gold that are in their vaults. The Bank of England actually refused to give Maduro his gold in 2018. I should say Venezuela's gold, because they don't believe he is the legitimate president of the country. They don't recognize him. China said that they're going to attack Taiwan if there's no other way of stopping it from becoming independent. Says one of the country's most senior generals in an escalation. A 2005 law gives the legal basis for military action against Taiwan if it secedes or seems like it's going to take the independence route. And over a vast open coal mine in Serbia, a small crane eased the front half of an ancient Roman ship from the steep sides of a pit. The ship was part of Viminicium, which was a sprawling Roman city from Rome, the Roman Empire, 45,000 people. And in another sign that countries from the EU are in economic recovery mode, the demand for power in Italy is now at 88% compared to the average levels between 2018 and 2019. That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to hit the like button there to help me out with the algorithm on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe.